Welcome to Mathletes. I'm Gori, and today we'll be taking a look at algebra. I'll be doing every exam question ever asked in HSC Standard 1 Maths over the last 5 years. So grab a pen and let's get started.
HSC Maths Standard 1 Algebra Rearranging. Let's look at every exam question asked on this topic over the last 5 years. Question 13. A trapezium is shown. Write an expression for the area of this trapezium. All right, so you guys should have memorized this formula. It's A is equal to half H A plus B. In this case, we can substitute in the values for H and for B. So it'll be area is equal to half times 12 times A plus 30. So we can divide that by 2, so we get 6 outside of A plus 30. That's the area. Find the value of A given that the area of the trapezium is 330 centimeters squared. So we just substitute in our 330 into the value of A, which is right here. And we have 6 outside of A plus 30. So we can divide our 330 by 6. 330 divided by 6 is equal to A plus 30. And just going to my calculator. 330 divided by 6 is equal to 55. So 55 is equal to A plus 30. And therefore A is equal to 55 minus 30, which is equal to 25. Let's see if we got that right. Yep, A is 25, and we got 6 outside of A plus 30. Moving along to question 19. The length L of a shark in centimeters can be modeled by the formula L is equal to 7.3A plus 38, where A is the age of the shark in years. At what age should the shark reach a length of 156 centimeters, correct to the nearest year? All right, so we just need to substitute 156 for this, the big L there. So 156 is equal to 7.3A plus 38. So now rearranging, we want to take this plus 38, move it to this side of the equal sign. So it's going to be a minus 38. 156 minus 38 is equal to 7.3A. And then we want to move the 7.3 on this side of the equal sign, which means it's going to be underneath. It's going to divide these other two numbers. So 156 minus 38 and then divided by 7.3 is the expression for A. And we're just going to put all of that into our calculator. 156 minus 38, 118 divided by 7.3 is 16 point, what was that? 16.16. All right, but it asked for the answer correct to the nearest year. So we're going to round that down to 16. 16 years. That's our answer. And there we have it. Okay, question 27. Zazu works a 38-hour week and is paid an hourly rate of $45. Any overtime hours worked are paid at time and a half. In a particular week, Zazu worked the regular 38 hours and some overtime hours. In that week, Zazu earned $2,790. How many hours of overtime did Zazu work in that week? All right, so first let's write an equation for how we're going to put all of these numbers together. So the equation is going to be the total is equal to 38 hours multiplied by his rate, which is 45, per hour, plus, that's his regular wages, plus some amount of overtime, we'll just call it over, multiplied by 45, but it's also time and a half, so we're going to multiply it by 1.5, right? And now we know that the total is equal to 2,790. So 2,790 is equal to, and let's just calculate that. So 38 by 45 is equal to 1,700, and it was 10, yep, plus over, which is, let's say, 45 times 1.5, 67.5. Okay, so we want to move this to this side, so we're just going to make it a minus. So 2790, take away 1710. And then we want to, we'll write that out, over multiplied by 67.5. All right, and then we want to move this one again to the other side of the equal sign, so it's going to come to the bottom. It's going to divide these two numbers. So 2790 minus 1710 divided by 67.5 is equal to the number of overtime hours he did. All right, so just make this a bit smaller. So it's 2790, take away 1710, and then divide that by 67.5, and we get 16. 16 hours. Always remember your units. Let's see. Yep, 16 hours of overtime. All right, moving on. The scatter plot shows the number of ice creams sold Y at a shop over a 10-day period and the temperature recorded at 2 p.m. on each of these days. The data are modeled by the equation of the line of best fit given below. And that's the equation, y equals 0.936x, take away 8.929, where x is the temperature. Sam used a particular temperature with this equation and predicted that 23 ice creams would be sold. What was the temperature used by Sam to the nearest degree? All right, so we know that this equation gives Sam 23. So we're going to substitute 23 in for the value of y. So we just go 23 is equal to 0.936x minus 8.929. Now we want to move the 8 to the other side of the equal sign to make x the subject of the equation. So that minus is going to turn into a plus. So we say 23 plus 8.929 is equal to 0.936x. And then we want to move the 0.936 to the other side of the equal sign. It's going to come on the bottom and divide the other two numbers. 23 plus 8.929 divided by 0.936 is what we get for x. So we get 34.11. 34.11, and it asked for the answer to the nearest degree. So we're going to round that down, and it's going to be 34 degrees Celsius. Or we could write that as that, 34 degrees Celsius. There we go. The nutrition label for a food item is shown. Based on the information on this label, what is the daily recommended intake of carbohydrates to the nearest gram? All right, so if we take a look at our carbohydrates, it's 19.1 grams, and that represents 6% of our recommended intake per day. So if we write that as an equation, we know that 19.1 grams is equal to 6%, so 6 over 100, multiplied by our recommended daily intake. So it's asking us, what is the recommended daily intake for carbs? Well, we just take this 100 and we take it to the other side of the equal sign. So it's going to multiply that 19.1. 6 times RDI. And then taking the 6 to the other side of the equal sign, it's going to come to the bottom of this. So it's going to be 19.1 times 100 divided by 6 is equal to our RDI. And then putting all of that into my calculator, it is 19.1 multiplied by 100 and then divided by 6. So we can have 318.33 repeater, and it wants it to the nearest gram. So we're going to round that down, and it's going to be 318 grams. There we go. Make R the subject of the formula. P is equal to 2R plus 10. All right, we want to move the 10 to the other side of the equal sign, and it's going to become a minus when it moves to the opposite side. So it's P take away 10 is equal to 2R. And now we want to move the 2 to the other side of the equal sign. So it's going to divide because it's multiplying on the right-hand side. So it's going to be P minus 10 divided by 2 is equal to R. That's it. All right. That's everything.